Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Vincent, tech founder and entertainment CEO, the world's first live event subscription marketplace, providing access to thousands of experiences around the globe in multiple genres like music, lifestyle, tech, and innovation experiences and food and everything under the sun. Ed, thank you so much for joining the episode. I'm really excited to dive into your background, your experience, also get some expertise and knowledge in the entertainment space as things have kind of shifted post-COVID. People are looking to gain new, exciting experiences, and from that kind of community around that. So really excited to dive into all those aspects with you. But before we go into all that good stuff, what were you doing before you started entertainment?
Sure. So thanks, Julian. Happy to be here. Um, so I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I've been an entrepreneur for well over 20 plus years, and have had multiple companies throughout the process. Most of them tended to be in the entertainment space. So I was a banker up until 1999, started my first e-commerce company, sold that in 2001. So I was around for the good old internet 1.0. Fast forward a little bit, I had about a 70-person marketing agency, experiential marketing agency, throughout most of the 2000s. And in that, that's where I really kind of fell in love with live events and kind of the world and the special thing that happens when you're either at a concert, a sporting event, a festival, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's a place in time. So obviously that is an entertainment driven business. And then following that, I had a SaaS business in the retail and franchise space, which was not entertainment. Took a little breather, but learned a lot about SaaS and recurring business models. Uh,
Yeah.
and then prior to festivalPass, I had a data and analytics company specifically in the entertainment space. A lot of big clients that the big television brands like A&E Networks and AMC
Yeah.
Networks, and goes
Yeah.
on to film studios, et cetera.
I love that. And it's so exciting to talk to founders who built partnerships because I think there's such intricacies in those. But, before we go into all that, what was kind of the bug that bit into you and started this whole entrepreneurship journey? Were you seeing things in the market that you could do better with different products that people were asking for, but, there wasn't any accessibility out there? What really got you inspired to go on a journey to continue founding companies and connecting people with whether it was technology or analytics or insights or experiences? What was that itch? What was that driver?
Yeah, I think throughout most of my life, it's always been about an entrepreneurial spin to it, right? Even throughout college, I was running my own business out of my dorm room, appraising real estate. So I was valuing real estate for mortgage companies. And I spent a little time going into this corporate world thinking that, hey, you know, there's some big shiny lights in New York City where people were investment bankers and it'd be cool to go there and figure that out. And when I got there, I realized that, it's one thing to be servicing companies and be a service provider. But it was more fun or at least I envisioned it would be more fun to actually be running a company. And that's kind of what kicked it off. And,
Yeah.
there was always these entrepreneurial ventures along the way, even prior to starting my first internet company, a buddy of mine and I used to throw these big, New Year's parties every year. And, it was always fun to do that, to have a project, to do something interesting. And then got the internet bug when I realized that you can actually sell tickets to parties online rather than running around from corner to corner collecting cash and making sure you're distributing those tickets manually.
Yeah. What was the process of like creating trust and legitimacy around, buying tickets online? Because there was such a huge transition. You either went to a box office or you felt fairly confident if you had somebody you knew who sold tickets. And this kind of, I think it goes across a few different industries, but what was that transition from, maybe I'll buy tickets online, but I don't know how legit it is, and to, well, I'm not going to buy anything in person because I don't know if that's, falsified or true. Now everything seems like, bought online. What was the trust process, and how was that just from, a compounding effect over time, or was there something that you saw that really drove people to, find more events and things and activities online?
Yeah, I can answer that in two ways. Is one, early on, a lot of people were just afraid to put their credit card online. So I think it's an evolution of the internet in general that any product per se, let alone tickets, that people felt more and more comfortable over time. Way back when I was talking about those kind of individual, parties that we would throw, it was really more about knowing the people. So it was the idea that instead of, running to the corner and collecting cash, somebody could just go in. They already knew what they were going to do. They knew the people behind the party. They knew they'd been to other ones. So there was a little more just trust that always existed. Right. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the beginning side of it. And then I just think over time, like people, every technology, and we're seeing it now in the crypto space, but every technology goes through certain levels of adoption, certain levels of shakeup, certain levels of mistrust, and then a more mass adoption and trust level that exists. And I think that's just happened over time with tickets, specifically as you were asking. A lot of that came down to some of the big players that are in the space,
Yeah.
really creating, almost totally remove the concept of fake tickets. Once you had digital adoption and digital scanning as you entered a venue, you're in a space where it's almost impossible to fake the ticket.
Yeah. 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 I talked to another founder recently who was part of seeing both the Web 1.0 and now the Web 3 evolution. And one thing he mentioned to me, which was really profound, was like, when he saw Web 3 coming online, he was like, oh, I've seen this movie before. And, creating technology and structure around it was exciting to him because there was a lot of lessons that he had learned and things he felt like he had foresight on from that experience. What are some of the lessons you learned from Web 1.0 to now Web 3? And what are you particularly excited about? And maybe what are some of the experiences that you learned from and that you're excited to take into the Web 3, I guess, evolution?
Yeah, I mean, what's always interesting about how do I say business or entrepreneurialism in general is most business models aren't that new, right? So they're just refactored versions of a way that business has been done, and then different either behavioral adoption or technology adoption makes things more possible at certain points in time. So when you talk about looking at Web one, it was, in the beginning there were certain things that were um, more accessible and easier to discover during Web one, and commerce became one of the first kind of interesting aspects of it. First, it was really just information. Then it was the ability, well, I can actually physically buy something online. And there was a level of trust, as we talked about earlier, happening in that space. Obviously, during that Web 1.0 timeframe, there wasn't enough, call it bandwidth, as well as, what Web 2 became, where it's people used to call it read and then read write. Right.
Yeah.
So Web one being read, you can gain information, you can transact, but then Web two is you can read write. So the individual is ability to add content to the overall
Yeah.
mix, which brought about social media. But also in that sense, during that whole kind of Web one to Web two, you saw the evolution of video streaming becoming actually possible. And I remember working on a project even during my agency company that I mentioned that we were creating. And, we would spend a ton of time just figuring out how to encode video, like hours upon hours to get, one feature length film encoded at a ridiculous expense. Whereas
Yeah.
now it's not even a question, right? It's just videos online. It just is. So anyway, those kind of evolutions are interesting. And then when you push to Web three is, I think what a lot of people forget, and probably not yourself or some of your audience, is, Web3 is much more than crypto and DeFi. Web3 is much more than NFTs. Web3 is, it really is analogous to the rebuilding of the internet, like, call it that rebuilding of a plane in flight. The idea that every single industry will leverage Web3, Web3 behaviors and Web3 technologies going forward. And that's why I think it's always interesting to watch that lesson, right? The lesson was, oh, everybody just needed to be online. How many people used to think the internet was just going to be a fad? Little did they realize it would, be part of everybody's life at all levels. And I think the
Yeah.
same thing's going to happen with Web3, right? Everybody's looking at some of the shakeup as we're recording this, right? There's a lot going on in a little bit of mistrust in the Web3, or I should say more crypto community right now because of FTX and a few other things going on. But those are all just things that happen, right? There's always going to be, bad players that don't follow specific rules and ethics that have been
Yeah.
set forth, but that usually shakes itself out, right? And then eventually the industry will start growing um, at a place because the underlying technology is not going away. The concept of shared ownership is not going away. The concept of smart contracts creating the automated nature to deliver a rules based concept is not going away. So anyway, it just I think I can say that ad nauseum, right? It's really very the movie is playing out again, right?
Yeah.
It's the mistrust, it's the bunch of money going into things that aren't real businesses, but then a little bit of a shakeout, and then real businesses actually leveraging technology and behaviors to grow.
Yeah. It's so fascinating thinking about, it's like this whole connectivity piece that, humans are somewhat hardwired for, whether it's all going online and being able to share ideas and information. And then, kind of translates, I guess, into more physical realm, which I'm excited about, in terms of event and experiences. And we were chatting a little bit before the show, but it's so interesting to see, post COVID after we had this huge content boom in a lot of these streaming platforms, but now it seems like people are more, anxious to get back out and have, new experiences, whether it's concerts, festivals, dining experience, something unique, different, or something shared within a community or a group of friends or, people or family. What are some ways that you've seen kind of a movement towards a new way to experience, I guess, life or an event, or is there anything that new that's kind of up and coming outside of the usual suspects like the music, and the whining and dining experiences? Is there anything that you're seeing becoming more prevalent or popular, or people are innovating on to create a more depth experience or unique experience?
Yeah, I think one of the things that happened out of COVID in general is once everybody was starved from that, that getting that real life experience.
Yeah.
And then when it started to come back in different ways, there was some innovation that kind of happened. You probably remember it almost feels like, decades ago when they started doing those pod concepts at concerts or, where you had to buy them in packs of six and you were with just your people and your people were away from other people. But what it kind of evolved into is it became, more customized experiences at events because of it. Of course, there'll always be, the classic general admission or, big arena concerts or whatever it is. But what I've seen a lot is this evolution toward curated experiences for different groups or different types of members or different places. It's one thing we get really excited about is, what festivalPass is. And, I could go into exactly what the business is, but, it's really about member connected experiences, passion connected member experiences. And the idea is that, a lot of people go, especially in a festival, they'll go and they'll meet people and they'll hang out and they'll make lifelong friends from that event or that festival. But they're all there for a reason, right? Whether your passion is music or your passion is sports or your passion is, food and wine or whatever it is. The thing that happens at that moment when you're connecting with other like-minded people is really exciting and amazing. So I think what's happened is some of those communities, and what we're really striving to do is build a community both online and offline that takes you through the entire experience. Whereas in the old days, getting a ticket to something was very transactional, right? Nobody really cared who the brand of the ticket company was. It was like, as long as I have the ticket and I'm going to see my artist with my friend, everything's cool. But we're really, what I love about Web3 from a philosophical standpoint, it's
Mhm.
really about community, right? And it's really about
Right.
shared ownership in the experience. So we're excited about, the stuff we're building and allowing people to, connect individually together over certain passions. And then obviously gain access to a ticket to get into the event. And
Yeah.
we hope over time, I think Web3 has taught us that communities can be really important. And we really get excited over time, even on our Discord, we have different sections for different areas. So if you live in Austin and you're on our Discord, you can connect with other people that live in Austin and that also might be excited about, country music or rock and roll or EDM or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
then you can actually build friends within the community first and then engage in those friends in real life
Yeah.
and then continue that loop.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about Festival Pass and specifically this idea about the it was like the festival family kind of NFT marketplace or minting that you're doing. I was reading into it a little bit and I would love to just learn more about the the partnerships and I guess what you're creating within this community that's, I think it's specifically unique to what you're doing, but also it drives that idea of having like a shared experience to something that maybe not a lot of people have access to, or when they do, you kind of continues that community.
Yeah, sure. So quickly prior to jumping into the Web3 side, just to share what the Web2 business is, right? So the Web2 business is a marketplace. And I know you mentioned you're familiar with marketplaces where members join and they either pay a monthly fee or an annual fee and they get a bunch of credits and they can use those credits to redeem for over 80,000 live events on the platform. So that's that core underlying Web2 business. And what we realized is everything when we started building that Web2 business, it was all about everything I mentioned before: community, shared ownership, the concept of being able to be together. So that's why it's a subscription membership, right? It's really a member driven organization. What I realized once, we started implementing all the Web3 tools and philosophy is that it really has been built for what Web3 really is, right? The idea that you can come together and you can share and you can be part of it. And so we're doing a lot in the Web3 space. So, of course, we accept crypto and all that kind of stuff to buy a ticket, to join your membership, all the table stakes, easy stuff. And then the really cool thing we just recently launched around the festival family is, again, building on the community concept. That's why we call it the festival family. So we wanted to share this experience that if you're an NFT holder, you're part of the festival family.
Yeah.
And it's a lifetime founder NFT. And we call it that because it actually is a lifetime of live events. So anytime somebody comes in and they mint or purchase the NFT, sometimes I try and keep away from the, Web3 speak, because at the end of the day, when you mint something, it's just buying something, and when you're doing all these things and people are trying to figure out the language, like when somebody says utility, which we think we have this amazing utility, it's really just benefits, right? So you own this thing, you minted it, and now for the rest of your life, you get $1,200 worth of credits to go to any of these live events every year on the date of purchase. So you buy it today, you immediately get $1,200 worth of credits. And then every year, 1 year anniversary from today, you'll get 1,200 more credits. And then that happens every single year as long as you own the NFT. And that's what's kind of cool about this shared ownership concept, right? So, one payment today gives you this access in perpetuity to some of the best events you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that you also get, the benefits, the other utility, is we're also producing these quarterly curated bucket list events. So it's the things like, really cool things like you might go to a sporting event and then hang out with the players after the game, or you might, go to have a concert only for a few hundred of our NFT holders with a well-known artist that you can come and just have this intimate experience with, not only being in a small environment, but everybody else there has a common bond because they're all NFT holders and they're part of this festival family. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that we're continuing to be excited about and provide as benefits to our NFT holders. But I think the key is just the aspect, right? Is that you own this thing for life. You can sell it whenever you want, right? You can decide to sell it, or you can just keep using it for as long as you love going to live events.
I love that. And it's exciting to see kind of the recycling of, if you have this, you can sell it and it gets repurposed and reused. I think that for me is an exciting piece of the Web3 technology, that it seems nothing should, go to waste, but also, things can continue to grow in their, to benefit whoever kind of owns them or uses them. Based on your experience as, a founder, or kind of, this is not your first, this is not your second, this is not your third, you've done this time and time again. What are some things that either you do or that you've seen other founders do, whether it's in your day-to-day life or weekly or yearly or monthly, that, successful founders do, in terms of strategies or activities, something that keeps people on track or keeps them, I guess, focused on the bullseye?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about community, and community is super important. One of the key things for me for the last 15 years, I've been part of something called EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a collective group of over 16,000 people globally, and every chapter through the US has it. Like when I was in New York, I was part of that chapter, a few hundred people there. Came to Austin, immediately there's over 200 people here that are part of it. But that's just one of many organizations. And it's been instrumental both personally and professionally in my life. And what it does is it actually just keeps you accountable, right? It keeps you learning. Like if you're in any kind of, entrepreneurial journey, it's the constant ability to learn and relearn and
Yeah.
understand more from other people that aren't necessarily only in your industry. I think people tend, even when they become founders or even within companies, they tend to kind of just hang out with people in their industry, right? So it's like, hey, trying to think about I'm in the car business, right? So
Yeah.
I go hang out with people and that are also in the car business, and all we do is talk about cars. But the really cool thing about being part of organizations that are diverse is you learn about everything. You learn about traditional, businesses that have been around for a long time, legacy businesses. You learn about new models. Why is SaaS good? Why is membership good? Why is, um, you know, what's the best way to market across various social platforms.
Yeah.
Should I get into Web3? Should I not get into Web3? But all of these things affect so many different businesses, and it gets exciting to have that around. So I tend to still participate in communities like EO here in Austin. There's a bunch of startup communities that it's fun to, I love hanging out with, call it early 20s, mid 20s founders that may be first time founders that might not have the breadth of tactical experience that I might have
Yeah.
or others might have, but they bring innovation and ideas that I never even thought of. And
Yeah.
it's exciting to me. It's like it's a full circle give back.
Yeah. Now it's incredible to see the community of founders, how diverse. I particularly, reason why I started this podcast was to really dive into the experiences on how building works in different industries. And if there's any takeaways that there, it's really about, like you said, it's like the tactical experience, but also how somebody kind of perceives a certain idea or concept or problem and how they're choosing to solve it. So diverse. Yeah, it's so fascinating. In terms of festivalPass, what are some of the challenges, the biggest challenges that it faces today?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, right? So you mentioned marketplaces, right? So when you have a marketplace, there's two sides to the marketplace. You have the product, the inventory, and then you have the consumer, the member on our side. So the good news is we've solved most of the inventory side, right? So in the beginning when we we're starting this company, there was various ways to go out and acquire inventory from partners, right? So whether it was a specific venue or a specific event, and how do we convince them to give us allocation before we really have members to use that allocation? So that was always an early challenge of any marketplace: is which comes first, the chicken or the egg? We solved the inventory side by creating, dozens of different partnerships where we now have over 80,000 live events. And that's not because we knock door to door on every single event and have a specific relationship with them. It's through dozens of partnerships and aggregators through which we then can pull in an API feed of real-time events going at the right time and have the ability to, in real time acquire those tickets as our members need them. So that's one challenge solved, but then it brings up the next challenge right now is to grow the consumer side, right? So we have over 70,000 members in our platform. We're growing, every day. That's prior to us kind of launching the whole Web3 NFT side. But we would like to, by the end of next year, to have 1 million members. So the question is where does that turn, right? So now I'm spending a lot of time talking to a lot of my other entrepreneur friends, obviously paid social. Does that work? Does influencers work? Does,
Yeah.
partnership marketing work? And, we started doing a lot of fun things on the partnership side with, on the Web3 side. So if anybody out there knows live events and been to live events, they've probably heard of Liquid Death, which is a water. So we just started a partnership with Liquid Death where because they also have their own NFT project. They call it the
Yeah.
Murderhead Death Club. But anybody that owns a Liquid Death NFT, they connect their wallet to our platform and immediately get free credits every month on our platform to spend to go to live events. So it's a symbiotic partnership, right? As we're giving value to them, to their members, and we're sharing both in the brand halo of what Liquid Death is, but at the same time getting thousands of their members to come and figure out and understand what festivalPass is, because they all love going to live events. That's just
Yeah.
one example, and we're doing that with half a dozen or a dozen other kind of partners. And I know you particularly said you liked the world of partnership marketing. And I think it's a powerful way for us to grow that
Yeah.
community driven member bases. And lastly, one of the cool things I think we're lucky enough to have, again, on the Web3 side is we have this utility, this benefit. A lot of projects or a lot of communities would love to have a benefit like ours. So it's how do we offer our our benefit to other communities in a way that really helps them grow. So your question was about challenges, and I think the challenge, right, is just to get the message out, let people know about the benefit of what we're doing. And
Yep.
what's great is anybody that does join either as a regular member or buys the NFT, they love it. They're like, oh wow, I didn't realize this is so cool. Not
Yeah.
only do I not pay ticketing fees to go to live events, but I also get all these other benefits.
Yeah. Long term wise, if everything goes well, what's the long term vision for Festival Pass?
Yeah, so we're focused mostly in North America right now, US. So as we grow to our, hopeful million members over the next year or two, we expect to expand into Europe, and then, play the same model out in Europe and other parts from a geographical expansion, Latin America, Asia. Those are all kind of, the dreams to go continent by continent, if you will, or geographic area by geographic area, and really share this with the world because what we do is global. It's a concept of passionate connected experiences is global.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then of course, just from a mission perspective, is I just want more people having human connections through passion based experiences. Like I want people to say that, hey, I met this wonderful person that we went to this food and wine festival together, and I never know I'd be friends with that person, but it was only because of festivalPass that I found them. And, now they're lifelong friends. Like those are the things that drive my passion.
Love that. I love that. What's particularly hard about your job?
Uh, I think it's still like any entrepreneur, right? Uh, there'll be a place in time where I'm not as involved in all the details. But I think at any point in time in a startup of any capacity, and when I say startup, it could be one employee up to a few hundred, is it's always hard to let go of all the details. And as a founder, sometimes it's hard to mentally shift from product to then marketing, then back to operations, then back to whatever. So I think the hardest thing for me is not being an expert, but having your mind in so many different aspects of the business. And we say a lot in our EO group is, you need to get to a place where you're working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
And it's an evolution, right? So in the startup, you're working in the business, and you need to get to a place where you have the right team in place and it's grown to a certain level enough where you can start working on the business and be more high level strategic, and not constantly every day, you know,
Yeah.
getting involved directly in the user experience or getting involved directly in which partnership marketing that we're doing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any advice you would give to founders who are struggling with or having challenges with context switching, going from working in the business to on the business?
I mean, I think part of it is back to the same answers as before, is build, wrap yourself in a community of support where you can work with other founders that have either achieved getting to on the business instead of in the business, and realize that it's an evolution. I think sometimes founders can't see the other side, and I think a lot of it is really just taking the time to realize it's a process, and kind of laying out what that 1, 3, 5 year goal is, and know that there's certain times and places where certain leadership team that gets put in place frees the founder from that next level. So it really is about building a great team and having great people. And each step of the way, you can free yourself from, one of the pains of the organization. So it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, great, company runs by itself. Now I gotta, now I can, think about the super high level vision. Just takes time, and understanding a process is there, and having patience.
Yeah. I always like to ask this, one for selfish research, but also for my audience as well. is whether it was early in your career or currently now, what books or people have influenced you and inspired you the most?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton, but again, it goes back to that tactical versus vision versus inspiration. Like, Measure What Matters is a book by John Doerr, which is all about building OKRs, which is another name for KPIs in the business. So the idea that all of the individual or the company goals get watered down to quarterly, that get watered down to specific team member goals. And then so every person in the organization knows what we're trying to accomplish over the next quarter, over the next year, so that every action they take enables them to make good decisions at the local level. And I can go on and on about it, but anyway, just measure what matters, right? And then on the more inspirational side, sounds a little silly, but there's a book called A Curious Mind by Brian Glazier. He was the film producer that was a partner with Ron Howard, the old Richie Cunningham guy. But like just the concept of a curious mind, the idea that waking up and every day wanting to learn something, wanting to understand people, and asking the questions why. Kids, I think that just inspires anybody to how can you build something better? How can you be a better person? How can you learn what somebody else is going through?
Yeah.
So those are two basic ones. And I'm sure I'll bore you if I can continue with more.
No, we love the suggestions, and we create a reading list. So it's always great to share with other founders in the community, where to kind of target when you do have time to learn and digest and do some personal research and career growth and personal professional growth, where the information is from founders who've found value out of it. So, I love the answers. And last little bit, I know we're coming close to the end of the show. Where can we find and support or even access festivalPass? Give us your LinkedIn's, your websites, your Twitters.
Sure.
Where can we be a part of everything?
Yeah. So the basic core website is festivalpass.com. Pretty obvious. All of the socials are get Festival Pass. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at Get Festival Pass. And then the NFT side, which you can still find traditionally through the website. But if you just went to family.festivalpass.com, you can learn all about what we're doing on that lifetime founder NFT. It's one of those things that if you are a live event fan, it's probably the best possible deal anybody can ever get today, because of the fact, one, the crypto prices are down. It's Ethereum based. So crypto prices are slightly down. So it's so sick that even for less than about $1,200 is what it costs to buy the NFT to mint it. And you immediately get that same amount of money back. So you get $1,200 worth of credits, and every single year forever, you get $1,200. So it's eventually crypto prices will go up. And as we sell different tranches of the NFT, we'll increase the Ethereum price as well. So anyway, the next 800 people that buy it, it'll be the best deal they can ever get in the world. Family.festivalpass.com.
Yeah, no, incredible. Ed, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited to share with the audience, not only your insights in entertainment, but entrepreneurship and, where your company is kind of evolving, but also continuing its path in Web2. And there's so much wealth of knowledge and so many gems of information from our conversation that I really appreciate. And I hope you enjoyed the show as well. And thank you so much for being on.
That's awesome. Thanks, Julian. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.